Hello and welcome to the Womb Centered Healing Podcast. I'm Salma Morningstar and I have Leslie Gordon here with me today. Thank you for joining me, Leslie. I met Leslie, we met on Facebook, on social media. I became a member of your group and was really wanting to learn more about the work that you do, helping women to connect with and find completion and resolution around abortions, miscarriages. And so I would love for you to introduce yourself and share more about your work and share about how you discovered and started getting into this work for yourself, this healing work.
Okay. Well, like you said, my name is Leslie Gordon, and I have a group called Soul Babies, the Spiritual Side of Abortions and Miscarriages. I also have a nonprofit organization called Godmother Doula, and it's really for women who have experienced some type of traumatic child loss, whether it be abortion or miscarriage, or even losing a child after birth. And what I do is I work with women and teach them the spiritual side of their journey of their pregnancy. A lot of women don't know that having an abortion doesn't mean that the baby is gone completely. It just means that it was a traumatic way of the baby leaving your body, but the soul of your child stays on your aura. And I've talked to several women that have over this issue, and a lot of women think it's okay to have their soul baby there, like as if it's an ancestor, but it's not an ancestor because a baby has to live, or a child has to live, or a person has to live completely their life and then pass away for them to come back in the spiritual world and protect you. With the soul baby, because it had a traumatic death, it actually stays connected to your aura because it didn't complete the whole 9-month process of pregnancy. So it's connected to your aura, which creates a darkness around your soul. And it's like Titus on your soul that you have to cleanse. And how you cleanse the baby is you send it back into the back into the astral world. And there's a certain technique that you have to do. And you do it during the full moon because it's the most powerful time of the cycle for women. And so I've had a lot of women do the ritual, and they've had beautiful experiences, a lot of dreams. They've seen their baby going into a light. Some women have, depending on how they do the ritual, because you can do the ritual in the spring, in the ocean. It has to be a running body of water that's moving. I had one client, she did the ritual in the ocean, and she had a dream of Yemenya coming to get her baby, and her baby waving bye to her. So it's just, it's something that I started doing because I started working with my master teachers for my spirituality to evolve. Both my master teachers, they told me that I had to remove my soul baby. And I was like, well, it was shocking to me because I was like, well, why? There was like, you had an abortion and you had miscarriages. And I had an abortion when I was 16 years old. And this happened like 20 years or 25 years after I had the abortion. They talked to me about it. So I had been carrying my soul baby for a long period of time, which, it made me realize why I was having a lot of problems in my life. I had money, and then as soon as I get money, I lose it. Or I had problems in my relationship with my ex-husband. I had problems with my, relationships with my children, having building relationships with each other, things of that nature. And I realized that because my soul baby was attached to my aura, it was creating negativity around me in my 3D life. So I had to complete the ritual myself. And when I did, I had a dream too. I saw a clock on the wall and my soul baby leaving at a certain time, leaving my aura and going into the astral. I wrote a book about different experiences that I had in the astral about seeing other people's soul babies and them coming to communicate with me, because what we don't realize is abortion is a big issue, not just here in the States, but in the world. But a lot of women have abortions whether they want to or not. A lot of them are forced abortions. A lot of them are willing. However, we don't realize that because we're not taught in the Western world about spiritual life and how it is just as important as our physical life. So we're creating a lot of negativity in the spiritual sense because we are creating karma by stopping lives from coming onto the world. So I wrote a book about that to help women understand why they're having a lot of, problems after their postpartum. They don't understand why they're carrying this negative baggage, why they don't feel right, why they're very sad. They can't talk about it because we talk about, no regret or guilt-free after abortion or after a miscarriage. You're not supposed to talk about, how you lost a child. So they feel like they're supposed to be quiet. You're not supposed to talk about the negative things in their life. So they're holding a lot of, sadness. And so I wrote the book and I created the group for those women so they can release their pain, and not all the time it's pain. Like I had a miscarriage at 5.5 months. And I took pictures of my son and he had passed on. But sometimes you just want a place to go where you can show your child, even though he's gone or she's gone, and other women can appreciate, your loss, but still show joy and happiness because those 5 months were important to you, even though your baby didn't complete its journey. And so that's why I created the group and wrote the book.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like this practice of, well, it sounds like you're working in several different realms. It sounds like your book addresses some of the emotional and psychic aspects that we're taught to ignore. We're taught to just pick up and carry on and not really spend very much time with our grief or our pain about these types of things, that we're just supposed to move on. And so that there's not really socially sanctioned grieving period for these types of losses for women, or for the fathers involved either,
Right.
And there's not really a recognition. So it sounds like you're addressing that. You're also, in the book, do you also address this connection with the soul baby?
I do.
And how that comes into play, because there's the emotional psychic realm and there's the spiritual realm of how our soul and the baby's soul is interacting, and whatever purpose there was in that connection and potential future purpose, even if right now isn't the right time, and the baby had to leave, however that took place. That there could be a communication there. So the emotional, for me, learning how to have healthy relationship to emotions was a big deal. It's it's a big part of my my development, and a lot of what I share about with my clients in the womb-centered healing is very much the emotional center, and how our relationships can be more healthy, and how we share about our feelings and our emotions, our needs and our desires. And then there's the realm of the spirit, which both of these realms require a lot of practice and training and personal development to be able to then share that and support others. So I'm really curious about how you got started with your emotional awareness, so that now you're writing books about it, right? How did you get started with that, and how did you get started with your spiritual? You say you have a couple of master teachers.
Well, right.
And those often interweave, right? Because the spiritual teachers will help you to grow and address any emotional things as well. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and your story about how you developed these skills.
Well, I was already going to school to become a therapist.
Ah,
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was going to school for my master's before I decided that, you know what, I don't really need to go to school for my master's. I have everything I need. You know, I've had my experience with losing children, and, you know, and I realized that what was lacking in the world is, you know, a lot of women who need, or not need, but who go to therapy, they need therapy and want therapy. They've all share the same common thing, which losing a child. Most women that I work with have had abortions or miscarriages, believe it or not, most women. So over 1 million women are recorded having an abortion each year. And that's just recorded. There's still places in America that don't record abortions that have over thousands within a month. So, but the common thing was they had an abortion, and most women don't talk about their abortions. So it's a lot of built up pain. And that pain travels to, you know, the relationship with their parents, their relationship with their spouse, their relationship with their children, because it's a lot of, you know, unaddressed issues that stimulate from, you know, losing a child. So, and due to the fact that I understood that, I saw the common goal. I said, okay, this needs to be addressed. But that was after I addressed that, after coming to my master teachers. And I started my spiritual journey actually because I had an awakening. I had dreams, and that I needed to be explained. And I address a lot of that in the book. I talk about that. It's funny that you asked me that, because I had a lot of dreams that nobody could explain to me. Why can I see these things? Why am I talking to beings that, you know, I don't really want to discuss with other people because they're going to think I'm kind of crazy, you know what I mean? So I found, I don't know if you know Dr. Gibson, Dr. Mitchell Gibson, and Master Teacher Asaria, or Kathy Gibson. I found them, and he was a psychiatrist before he became a spiritual healer. And so I found him, and he helped me on my journey, and it just made me realize that this was an important path for me to take.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so it helped you on your healing journey from your abortions and miscarriages that you felt were really central. And I just wanted to come back to what was coming up for me around that, you know, a lot of the focus of the discussion about abortion, for example, is about whether or not women should be allowed to have an abortion.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
But the thing that seems more important to me is, why do so many women feel the need?
Okay.
Or why are so many women being forced into having abortions when it's so traumatic and detrimental to the woman herself? It's not like women are choosing this willy-nilly, you know. So for me in my work, backing up to before the abortion is happening on an individual level, but also on a social structure level of why is it that so many women feel that need? And there's lots of answers to that question. And so I'm curious your reflections on that.
Well, I'm so happy you brought that up, because this is something that people don't realize. People think that women get abortions because I got pregnant and oops, so what? I don't want it. It's like a form of birth control, and that's not why at all. Every woman that I've ever met that had an abortion always wanted their baby, always. But it was some type of circumstance that happened. And the number one reason why most women get abortions that people don't know about is because of domestic violence. They are trying to get away from their spouse. They're trying to get away from the controlling abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. And most women who suffer from domestic violence have like multiple sclerosis. They get that from being beat so many times, and their body deteriorates. Not just their mind, but their body. So a lot of times they have an abortion because they can't carry the baby because they're physically, distraught, or because they're trying to run away from their spouse and they feel as if they have the baby, that it's going to keep their spouse near them because they have another child by this person and he's going to want to see the baby, and it's going to be continual abuse or whatever type. And then the next reason why women have abortions is because of forced abortions, a lot of sex trafficking. A lot of women that go into Planned Parenthood to get abortions are women who are being sex trafficked, and they are being forced by their pimps to have abortions. So many stories of women having abortions, like multiple abortions, 6 or 7. And you have to remember that sometimes they're on drugs, not because they do it, because they're being forced to do drugs, so they can be somewhat not in a centered state. Okay, they can be controlled. And then around the world, it also has to do with government policy. Like in China, you can only have a one-child law. So if you get caught getting pregnant or being pregnant, you're forced to have an abortion. And China has been known to give women abortions at 8 months pregnant.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So there's these underlying reasons why there's so many abortions happening, and so I just wanted to clarify the discussion.
I'm glad you did that.
Where we're coming from, because and how when we look at those underlying reasons, why are these women in abusive relationships? What's going on in our society that's creating that? It's often because their parents were abused, and their parents were abused, and their parents were abused, and it goes back through the generations. And the whole relational model that is the foundation of all of this is the model of domination.
Yes,
and
that's really what it comes down to.
Right. And so that there's somebody who has power over everyone else. And so as we're shifting to, wait a second, this isn't working to live this way. And we're developing these shared power healing modalities of saying, okay, yeah, I had that abortion. Maybe I made that decision without even consulting this other soul that was in me. Now I'm realizing, wait, that was a soul that we had some kind of a contract. Let's have some awareness around it. And let's have a communication about it, and perhaps set up a healthier partnership between yourself and the soul baby. But also that process could bring awareness to, it seems to me, how to have more partnership with oneself and with everyone in our lives, with our, if we can get away from those abusive relationships and start to cultivate and heal emotionally and spiritually ourselves, so that we can then start to have more partnership relationships. Then when you're in a healthy partnership with in a healthy community with other healthy partnership families, then even a woman who, or a family that has less financial resources, can be supported in a partnership community if they're surprised by pregnancy. The other thing that I feel is a big cause of how many abortions we have is this secrecy and misinformation about fertility and about a woman's fertility, and how we're taught to ignore our menstrual cycles and not learn about it all, and not understand how our fertility actually works. And then the other reason is that men are taught about sex, that it's just this momentary pleasure, and that it doesn't have, that men aren't taught how to take responsibility for their fertility.
Absolutely.
At all. So there's all these factors in why abortion happens, and then there's all these factors in why miscarriages happen, right? That we could unpack. and we don't necessarily need to do that here on this podcast.
Yeah, so many reasons,
right? And or infertility, for example. One of the populations of women that I work with are women who are struggling with fertility, who are wanting to get pregnant, and talking with a soul baby, communicating with the soul baby is one of the things that that's why I wanted to talk with you too, to hear how you work it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, because talking with, opening up lines of communication with the soul baby that you feel called to be a vessel to deliver into the world, to support their embodiment process. But if the woman's body isn't able to, to do that, I work with women in helping our menstruation and our physical body to be as healthy as possible, because challenges to our fertility are a sign of overall health imbalance.
That's right.
And so doing that, and so the soul baby can be an ally in that healthy healing for the woman, to be in her optimum health, to be able to gestate and birth that baby and meet their partner in embodiment.
So what do you do to help women in their fertility?
Well, one of the main tools that I use is that I encourage women to do and facilitate for women is menstrual cycle analysis. So we look at all the different signs and symptoms around the menstrual cycle, not only the bleeding time, but in between, the length, how many days each monthly cycle is, what the blood looks like, what color it is, how many days of bleeding each month, how the tracking the cycle for the last 6 months, and getting all this information as far as any kind of chronic infection she might have or not have, other symptoms, breast soreness, looking at the whole body and how it is with the menstrual cycle. And so we've been taught to just sort of accept all kinds of symptoms that are actually a sign of overall health imbalance. And so I educate a lot of women about what the different symptoms are telling them about their body. And so then we look at what might need to change about their diet, what might need to change about their emotional and communication circumstances. Perhaps there's emotional skills, perhaps there's ancestral healing that needs to take place. They might be carrying a wound.
That is so important.
Ancestral. Exactly.
That's one of the things that I put in my book is how the importance of your ancestors, and because you have your ancestors, you give birth to them. My son, I wasn't able to, because I waited 5 years to have a little boy, and he didn't come until my grandfather died. So yeah, the ancestors is a very big part of fertility.
Right. And so there's a whole realm of exploration that the medical fertility doctors aren't addressing that's so important. And so this talking with the spirit baby or the soul baby can give lots of information and guidance. And so I use also herbal body treatments, particularly vaginal steaming with herbs that help to increase the vitality and balance out the menstrual cycle and optimize fertility. And that it's also a very self-reflective, meditative, nourishing practice that can be combined with some of these ancestral healing and spirit baby communication practices and meditations while steaming. It makes a very lovely combination, and it really teaches women to take the time to really care for themselves, which I feel is an important preparation for pregnancy and motherhood, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, how can we take care of the children? And
that way you have no surprises during your pregnancy as well.
Right. What do you mean by that? When you prepare your body, Mm-hmm.
You know, when you're aware of anything that might be causing a problem or might
Mm-hmm.
cause a problem for your baby.
Mm-hmm.
Just anything, you're
Mm-hmm.
aware. You know, you should be prepared to have a child, not just, you
Right.
know, it just fall upon you and you
Mm-hmm.
have to take care of it after, because it might cause different problems.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that this lack of awareness about our fertility,
Mm-hmm.
that's what that results in, is that we're surprised. And it goes about when we're pregnant, right? That usually goes hand in hand with lack of awareness about our physical health. We're not taught how to take care of a woman's body. Doctors haven't even studied how to take care of women's bodies and included women in studies, medical studies, until the 1990s. They were women were
Wow, that's late.
deliberately excluded from most medical research.
Wow.
I know, 1990s. Now, unless
That's
of
younger
course,
than me.
that it was involuntary experimentation, say on enslaved women in the South.
Mm-hmm.
There were plenty of experiments like that, which we won't need to talk about either. But that's the other way that women were included. So okay, thanks.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't even know if that counts, because that could have been like torture in some
it was torture. And so how the healthy body that's not being tortured, it needs to be treated, is completely different than that, right? So do we want to, that's what I find, is a lot of women just think that modern gynecology is the safest, healthiest way to address a woman's health needs. But that was based on that research, which is
And it's
torture.
very scary. And that's another reason why a lot of women had, well, for what I've seen working with my clients, miscarriages, is because they're putting a lot of things in their body from, you know, like medications, and that mess with the reproductive system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we have to acknowledge that we can't put everything in our body, especially as women. When we give birth to nations, you know, we have to protect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the truth is, our modern lifestyle very much disregards the physical body,
Mm-hmm.
and exploits the physical body. That the physical body is just something that we get to use up and use to produce things that we desire, or to do things that we want it to do, instead of we're not taught to take responsibility for our own health, the health and well-being of our physical body, let alone our emotional and spiritual health. That's something that people come to, like yourself and myself, when the pain is not what we want to be living with, and we start to explore that. But there's still a lot of shame of even saying, yeah, I'm seeing a therapist. There's a lot of people who have a lot of shame around that. Or there's a lot of shame around having a health issue at all, and people will actually ignore symptoms and tough it out and push through. And so this shift, I feel like, that we need, that you're promoting, that I'm promoting in my work, is to say, wait a second, let's slow down, let's pay attention to the symptoms we're having. Let's integrate our spiritual awareness with greater physical awareness, greater emotional awareness, and begin this healing process. And so I really appreciate you coming on to share your wisdom about that. And it seems like I would love to hear. So it sounds like your work with women focuses on one particular ritual of releasing the soul baby. Are there other supportive practices around that, to prepare for that, in the aftermath of that, or any other
right now,
you're developing?
Because it's this information is not, not a lot of people know about it. I'm pushing this first.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, after enough people, start, making this awareness movement about soul babies and how to remove them, I'm going to move further on. But right now, this is really important, because so many women that are suffering with their soul babies. Now I say suffering because, the negativity and the karma from the loss, creates different problems in their lives. So I said the suffering with their baby. It's just something they need to create a new contract to clear, the negativity around them. And then, a lot of times they can move on and, get pregnant a lot. Well, it depends on the contract. Sometimes you only make one contract in the astral world, and that one contract was the baby that was, didn't complete its life. So, from there, I will move on to other things, but this is very important right now. It's just to focus mainly on that.
Mm-hmm. And so for yourself, though, there have been other steps in the process, I imagine, in your healing, and that you're developing to share with people when the time is right as well. Beautiful. Wonderful. So is there any other aspect of this that you would like to share about on the podcast today?
No, it's just nothing I could think of. That's really mainly it. My book is coming out on Tuesday. It'll be available on Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
You could find the book. You can come to my group, Soul Babies, the Spiritual Side of Abortions and Miscarriages, or you can go to Godmother Dola on Facebook. That's my Facebook page. And I'm always available.
All right, wonderful. So if folks have listeners, all right. So if listeners have questions for you, they can find you on your Facebook group and on Godmother Doula, which is your Facebook page. Is that right?
That's right.
So wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us, Leslie. And again, if people want to, you're welcome. If listeners want to connect with me more and learn more about how all of these practices can start coming together, you can reach out to me through the website, the wombcenteredhealing.com website. And also there's the Womb Centered Healing Temple Facebook group where there's rich discussions about all of these healing processes we've been talking about. So thank you all for joining us for the podcast today. Thanks again, Leslie. And that's all for now. Until next time.